Welcome to the Reconnection Club podcast, the show that helps parents heal troubled relationships with their adult sons and daughters. I'm your host, psychotherapist Tina Gilbertson. Each week, I'll offer you compassion, clarity, and personal development tips designed to help you reconnect, not only with your child, but with yourself. Now let's get started. There are some things that you can just learn and then do, like learning a new recipe or the combination to a particular lock. Once you know the recipe or the combination, you can cook that dish or open that lock whenever you want to. But there are other things you can learn that are hard to do even though you know what to do. Most of us know how to do a push-up, for instance. You just lie on your stomach and push up with your hands. But how easy is it to do that? For some it may be easy, but for others it's impossible, even though they know how to do it. They just don't have the physical strength to make it happen. When it comes to repairing relationships, many rejected parents know that certain behaviors are helpful while others are not, but they have a really hard time putting that knowledge into practice. Let me give you two examples. The first is dropping defenses. If you've been listening to this podcast for a while, or if you've ever been on the receiving end of an adult child's complaints, you know that defending yourself, while a completely natural and understandable thing to do when you're feeling attacked, never seems to work in getting you and your child on the same page. Instead of bringing you closer, defensiveness often pushes you apart. But even if you know that, how easy is it to let go of defensiveness when you're blindsided by what feels like a personal attack? Another example of knowing versus doing is when your adult child has clearly and repeatedly asked for space or time apart, and you find yourself continuing to reach out to them anyway. You know that not respecting their request for space could prolong the estrangement, but in the moment you find yourself just not able to stop reaching out. Why do we do things we know will work against our own goals in the long run? What gets in the way of doing the things we know are good to do? There are two really big obstacles, and the first one, I would say, is emotions. When it comes to deciding what to do or not to do, if your head and your heart aren't in agreement, the winner is usually your heart, especially when emotions are strong. Your head may say, "My son has asked for a timeout, and he said he'll contact me when he's ready, so my best response for the health of our relationship right now is to respect that request, at least for the time being. If a lot of time goes by, say more than a year, and I don't hear from him, I can always check in again. But for right now, my job is clear. I wish it were different, but these are the circumstances I'm given." All that is what your head might say. And your heart may go along for a week or two, or a month or two. But then your heart might start saying things like, "I miss him so much. What if he thinks I don't love him? It's his birthday. Shouldn't I send him something?" And so on. And even if you know that you want to respect your son's or your daughter's request for space, what you may end up doing is following your emotions. Grief, loss, frustration, loneliness, rejection, remorse, regrets, the list is long of emotions that may assert themselves. And what you end up doing then is the opposite of what you know to do. So emotions are the first wrench in the works, and I'll talk about how to handle those in a moment. The second factor that stops knowing from becoming doing is biology. When your adult child behaves in ways that threaten your sense of well-being, your sympathetic nervous system may produce a full-blown stress response. Your body tenses, and so does your brain. You suddenly lose access to all those ideas you had about how to respond if you feel attacked. In the hierarchy of decision-making, biology comes before everything else. If your brain takes a cue from your tense body and tells you there's a threat, you don't have a lot of options besides doing whatever it takes to survive. And survival most of the time means that either you fight, run away, or freeze in place. Obviously, none of those is a great relationship repair strategy. So your emotions and your biology, specifically your nervous system, might need some attention for you to be able to put knowledge into practice consistently. I don't think it's possible or necessary to control our emotions or biology 100% of the time. But progress is possible, and now that your adult child has created distance, this may be a good time to turn your attention here. I'll give you a place to start, but bear in mind that there are oodles of resources out there available to help people develop their capacity for self-soothing. That's really what we're going for here. When I talk about taming emotions and biology, it's self-soothing. And in the roadmap to reconnection that I outlined in episodes 97 through 99, this would be a step 1 activity. When it comes to soothing emotions and how to handle them so they don't keep you from doing what you know to do, I want to emphasize that trying to talk yourself out of emotions is not a sustainable or compassionate strategy. Any kind of chronic suppression or bargaining or self-manipulation or cognitive processing at the expense of feeling will only hurt your relationship with yourself in the long run. I rarely say anything categorical, but I think the way we typically deal with emotions in our culture is just plain bad. Emotions are soothed and released when they are accepted, acknowledged, understood, and felt. Once that happens, they're done with us until the next time they're triggered. And then we do the same thing again with them. That's how we keep them from running the show, not by trying to control or suppress them. If you'd like to try some emotional self-soothing and haven't already done so, please read my book on how to deal with emotions. It's called Constructive Wallowing: How to Beat Bad Feelings by Letting Yourself Have Them. When it comes to biology and making friends with your nervous system, mindful self-awareness is important, and ultimately, so is the ability to physically relax. This is not something that everyone can easily do. If you're one of the many people who find relaxing scary or psychologically uncomfortable for any reason, I encourage you to be curious about that rather than judging yourself. And when you're ready, you might decide to speak with a therapist who specializes in trauma. For much more about trauma and the nervous system, one interesting resource is something called polyvagal theory. That's Polyvagal, polyvagal theory. I'll put some links about it in the show notes. The last thing I want to say about knowing versus doing is that we're all human. We're not machines that can be programmed to do things and then just do them. Everybody struggles sometimes to do the things we know to do instead of the things we want to do or tend to do. So be gentle with yourself, but think about the role of emotions and biology in all of your relationships and how you may be able to work with those to your benefit a little more often. Until next time, remember that you are a loving, lovable, and still growing human being. So please take good care of yourself. Bye for now. If you've enjoyed this episode of the Reconnection Club podcast, I invite you to check out reconnectionclub.com. The Reconnection Club is for parents at any stage of estrangement from their adult, child, or children. So whether you've just realized there's trouble between you, you've been living with estrangement for years, or you're newly reconciled but still walking on eggshells, the Reconnection Club is your essential resource for information, support, and continued personal growth. With our courses and workshops, expert interviews, monthly Q&A calls, and a friendly, active community, the Reconnection Club is a wonderful place to be for anyone suffering the pain of estrangement from an adult, child, or children. So check it out at reconnectionclub.com.